Welcome back to Data Science course. In this lesson, let us learn about clustering in machine learning. What is clustering? It's grouping in the values by depending on their characteristics by nearest neighbor, like something like algorithms. What is machine learning? Clustering in machine learning. In machine learning, we often group examples are first step to understand a subject in a machine learning system. Grouping unlabeled systems is called grouping unlabeled example is called clustering. As the examples are unlabeled, clustering relies on unsupervised machine learning. Here is the cluster we can see uh, previously as we discussed about some dogs or something like that, dogs and cats and some apples and oranges like this. It is a classification. Sorry, some red points, some green pants, some pink pants, and some black pants, some again some blue pants. It's a cluster. Cluster 0, 1, cluster 1, cluster 2, cluster 3, cluster 4. It's a cluster. It is a class of unsupervised class. We will feed to the machine to the unsupervised data so that it will classify. A machine algorithm, clustering algorithm will classify what cluster means. It's a group. It will group the points or some data, some similarity of these things, similarity things by recognizing the patterns. It will group the data. What are the three types of clusters? Again, it is a uh, clustering is three types: centroid based clustering, density based clustering, distribution based clustering, hierarchical clustering. Let us see one by one. Centroid based. A centroid based clustering is one of the one you probably hear about the most. It's little instead parameters you give it, but it's the fast and efficient. This type of algorithm separate data points based on the multiple centroid data. Each data point is assigned to cluster based on square distance from the centroid. This is the most commonly used type of clustering. We can see the nearest neighbor. We can see center based is it is let us give some point. What are the points near to this uh, based on the circle centroid? It is centroid behavior is there, some circle like behavior. You can see it is those points near to this uh, uh, group or cluster will make it some cluster, and like this similar properties and similar centroid distance, some distance measurement is there. Centroid based use case. Retail companies often use the clustering to identify the group of households that are similar each other. For example, a retail company may collect following information: household income, on household size. It is centralized based. It is household based income on household grouping, some urban areas and something like. We can see some urban based areas and depending on the household and their income and size, whatever it may be. Density based. In density based clustering, data is grouped by areas high concentration of data points surrounded by area of low concentration of data points. Basically, the algorithm finds the places that are dense with the data points called those clusters. The great thing about this is the cluster can be any shape you can, not constant about the region. These clustering algorithms under this type of try to assign outline cluster and so that get ignored. Here is an example of the uh, density based cluster. You can see here high density and nearby low density. We can see outlier. Depends on the outlier. It's a density based cluster. It is called density based cluster. It is the high values and depending on the values, some depend calculating some values. Distribution based. Distribution-based clustering. With the distribution-based clustering approach, all of these points are considered part of the cluster based on the probability that they belong to the given cluster. It works like this. There is a center point and this distance of the data point from the center increases. The probability of being part of this cluster decreases. If you are not sure how to distribute in your data, might be you should consider the different type of algorithm. Here is an example of distribution based clustering like this previously discussed of centroid based distribution based clustering. It is called distribution based clustering. When should DBSCAN be used? In general, DBSCAN is a unsupervised clustering algorithm that should be used when you do not have particular outcome to a value you want to predict. Instead of, you should have a set of features of you want to use identify the pattern across your data set. What is DBSCAN clustering? Explain with example. Clusters are dense regions in data space separated by regions of low resolution points are called DBSCAN. Density based density based algorithm used on this institutional notation. Clusters are noise. The key in data is for each point of the cluster in neighborhood of given a radius has contain at least minimum of number of points. Hierarchical based clustering is typically used in hierarchical data like you should get from company database of taxonomism. It should build tree of clusters, everything organized from the top down. This is more restricted than the other clustering types, but it's perfect for specific kind of data sets. What is hierarchical clustering and how does it works? Hierarchical clustering is a popular method for grouping objects. It creates groups so that objects within the group are similar to each other and different from objects in other groups. Clusters are usually represented in hierarchical tree called dendrogram. Here is an example of hierarchical cluster. You can see like a group like some dendrogram in neurons. How hierarchical cluster in machine learning we used in a given example. Hierarchical cluster is also used in clustering analysis. In other unsupervised machine learning approach for grouping unlabeled datasets into clusters. The hierarchy of this cluster is developed in the form of tree in this technique, and this tree shaped structure is known as dendrogram. That's all about the clustering. Different of this lesson, we have learned center based clustering and density based clustering and distribution clustering, hierarchical clustering. Later we will discuss briefly about clustering. Thank you.